Greetings and welcome to In-Depth. I'm Dike Rostant. Many describe the move towards entrepreneurship as a leap of faith that can run the gamut of dizzying heights and tremendous lows. To speak to some of the challenges as well as potential opportunities that his NGO, Christmas the Entrepreneurial Guild, is bringing to the table, we have Paulidor.
Hi,
Hello, sir. How are you doing?
I'm fine. I can't complain too much. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. And one of the things that I want to start off with is getting an idea of the NGO itself. Thank you. Christmas the Entrepreneurial Guild.
Right. So when we were talking about names, we were like we wanted to spread goodwill, and Christmas was already there, and it's easy to associate with. And I think it's something that entrepreneurs, especially entrepreneurs in our climate, need is some goodwill. Yeah. So what we do actually is we work with entrepreneurs from the scratch, from the seed stage straight up to the startup stage or small business stage. We teach them the differences between a small business and a startup, and we help them get financing. And financing is one of the harder issues in our climate here because most banks, it's really safe for them not to touch a small business or startup until they're like 3 years out. But there are a lot of ways that entrepreneurs could get funding that they're just not fully educated about.
With that, you mentioned the term climate twice. What are some of the things or the markers that you see when you look at the lay of the land, when you survey the climate in Trinidad and Tobago? And this is especially for those who are in that ideation, that 0 to 3 years phase that you would have spoken of to as well. Thanks.
All right. So in Trinidad, when you now open a business or you introduce a product that's relatively new, there's a period of time which is 1 to 4 months. If you're one of those lucky ones, you will get a bulk of customers coming in. You'll have a lot of sales going on. Your product or your service, it will be relatively new. And after that phase, you now have to try to keep going and keep surviving for the next couple of years till you meet it where you're attractive for a bank or for a venture capitalist to invest in you. Now, it's a bit harder here because one, we don't have as many venture capitalists. Two, our culture as Trinidadians and even a broader region, we don't have what you call a backer culture. And what that is maybe you've heard about things like Kickstarter and GoFundMe. These are platforms we have zero access to in Trinidad and Tobago. And it's something that we intend to change and we intend to implement these softwares. But before we do that, we need to change the actual culture of the people and we need to get some belief in our system.
What's the biggest thing that you want to change? Or and let me also flip it and ask, what do you think may be the easiest thing to start to address?
So for us, the easiest thing is to change a culture. And how do you go about changing the culture of anything? First, you need to understand the problem and the pain point. So culture is simply the way we do things. And you would notice naturally a society changes every 10 years or so. For us to change the culture we do business in Trinidad is for us to now mentor kids as young as 15 to 35. That's our bracket. And once we change the way they see business, they see money, how they operate with finances, and how they basically operate with partnerships, we can now have a drastic impact on the system.
You talk about that catchment area, and you remind me of some people who saying, forget them old people because they're not going to change. They're going to be laggards in any process, not going to be early adopters. But even though you gave us an idea of age that you're looking at, what kind of numbers are you trying to reach out and impact?
So to put this, we do have a very reachable goals for the first year. So in 2025, we're actually working on a project which would bring speakers from around the region, North America, South America, Central America, who are established entrepreneurs, authors of several books, and we will have them run a 10-day class with a 7-week project. And we're aiming to get 150 young entrepreneurs or young individuals interested in getting into entrepreneurship, and we'll train them and we'll mentor them. And this program, right now, we're in the works of getting it 78% subsidized. But what it looks like is normally a program like this will cost a person around the equivalent of 35,000 TT dollars. But we're looking at getting it down to around $5,000. And the thing is, we're trying our best. If we could even get it lower than that, we will, but we're still in the beginning phases of it.
Looking at a program like that, which sounds very ambitious, and because sometimes you speak about the culture, then you have other people talking about, as a society, Trinidad and Tobago, we may not be the quickest ones to embrace risk. We may be very risk averse. How does mentorship factor into something like this? Because it's not something that we necessarily learn growing up through school. We may have people who are in our family or in our immediate circles may help to instill this in us, or we may just find ourselves in a situation where we have no choice but to try to do for our own and create our niches and our markets and penetrate those areas for us to succeed. Where does entrepreneurship fit into this initiative that you're spearheading?
Right. So firstly, when we look at risk, it's really about perspective. A lot of people, they do take life for granted, and they would assume they go to sleep at night and there's no risk when they wake up at the morning, that they're guaranteed to wake up in the morning. The fact about life is everything is a risk. Everything is a gamble. And what we would like to teach and show them is about managing these risks and understanding these gambles. And the thing is, yes, it has a lot to do with a lot of older people. We're very much conservative here in Trinidad, how we would teach our kids and even the older generation. But when you're young, if you could be molded properly to understand this and be educated about it, you would now have a better set of entrepreneurs coming up. And this is not only about them accepting the risk. This is about, for us, it's about them now creating impact into the society. Because the thing is, we all look at the news, we see where the country is going, but we would hope very much that once these entrepreneurs are now successful, they create some sort of impact, whether it's helping the environment, whether it's helping a particular niche of people in need of more assistance with their spare capital.
And with that, I don't want to ask another question. I want us to take a break and then come back, because it's that level of impact that projected entrepreneurs and businesses can have is something that I want to dive a little deeper into when we return. We are speaking with Val Paulidor, looking at Christmas, the Entrepreneurial Guild. Stay with us. We'll return after this. Welcome back. We are speaking with Val Paulidor, Christmas, the Entrepreneurial Guild. And just before we took that break, you were speaking about impact, Mr. Paulidor. What is the significance of the potential of communities helping entrepreneurs to thrive, and then those entrepreneurs putting effort back into the communities that would have helped them? So there's this cyclical sort of effect, as opposed to resources just leaving that community.
Yeah. So once we have them in their communities, and their communities are supporting them, the communities now have a vested interest in these entrepreneurs. So they're now benefiting from these entrepreneurs financially, but it goes beyond that, because once these entrepreneurs are now making proper profit, they now have to look at what aspects of their community they can help. And the thing is, there's several aspects, and one of the most common aspects we're caring about all the time is conservation, uh, global warming, what we could do for our environment, what we could do for the people around us. And it's a really simple concept that if you help someone around you, maybe you don't expect anything in return, but maybe that person will go around to help someone else. So it it is a better society. It is a better society in such that once you help someone and they return that favor, the cycle continues. And more, I'm
And
sorry.
even looking at that, and even looking at that cycle continuing while you deal with that. One of the things I want to ask is the services that you offer. Is it that you're teaching entrepreneurial skills in one area, or is it a mindset so that there's a certain set of skills that you're sharing? So however the entrepreneur wants to articulate those skills is up to them.
Right. So yes, there are a certain amount of skills that we are sharing, and we are coaching. And yes, it's how they articulate it. It is up to them, but we are giving them a framework of how they should proceed and at what stages they should now get into giving back to their communities.
Do you know these 150 people that you want to target? Is there a catchment area? Is it going to be as wide as possible? How are you targeting them?
So our 150 people, they're between the ages of 15 to 24. And that's a perfect age to change up the mindset because they're still young around that time. And here's the thing: someone once told me, um, actually, I could probably call his name Bonnie Prasad. He used to own a Space Lanuva, and he was like, all of my friends are young. They're under 23. Around that age. It's like, why? Because I was pretty young at that time. I was 20. And he's like, because all the young people, they have all the ideas going on there. And now at 32, I'm like, this guy he was completely right. And the thing is, now you have a young person, you're molded and their minds are young, and they have all these wonderful ideas coming in. It's really for them to implement them and just simply make society a better place.
Do you have who are some of the stakeholders? Because yes, you said you're trying to get these people together, but who are some of the people who have already seen the vision and are saying, yes, we are on board to help this project move forward?
Okay, so one of the companies we have ISS Optical. Right now, we have done particular letters. We have a company in Bahamas, and we have a company in Curacao. Now, I'm not quite ready to let out all our backers just yet, but it will be public information by the end of August. That is something we can send to you. All right. But for the while, the only people that signed on fully that we are allowed to talk about is ISS Optical.
And that begs the question, people who are looking at this conversation right now and they see the value of what is being brought to the table and the potential of it, and they're here in Trinidad and Tobago, how can they sign on? How can they continue to help change that culture and say, let's back this initiative because we see the potential?
All right. So there are roughly two ways to go about it. One of which they could probably reach out to me on my Facebook page, which is Paulidor, or they can go on to Facebook and get on to Christmas the Guild, and they can shoot us a message there. Um, Other than that, we are open to setting up emails, and if they choose to email us, they can get us on christmastheguild at gmail.com, and we can set it up from there.
Do you find information the easiest thing to come about? I know some people, they speak to, yeah, when I mustered up the courage to ask this person, they were very willing to give me the information. And some people have slightly different experiences. Um, what has your experience been thus far in your journey?
Uh, Starting off as a young entrepreneur, I don't think information was readily available. Um, the thing is, if you're lucky, or you might be able to find someone that will just give you information. But in the long run, you need to take that upon yourself. You need to ask the questions. And a lot of times, people may not want to help. A lot of times, people will tell you no. And the thing is, you just got to roll with the shots. You take the no and you ask the next person. But people do tend to help eventually. It's simply about not giving up.
With that, how was the difference or make the distinction between having a great idea, an idea that makes all the sense in the world, and translating that into a great business?
Right. So when you have a great idea, you need the first thing you need to know. You need to jot it down. You need to write down your details, and you need to figure out, how am I now going to make an income out of this? And the thing is, most of the times, if you're not in the position where you have financial backing, the main question is going to be, how am I going to get financed to make this idea happen? And how am I going to be able to repay this finance? And those are one of the top questions that comes about before you launch a business.
Now I'm looking at the fact that you said basically 10 days of class, but then I think 7 weeks of the project. How are
Yes.
those 10 days split up? Do you have it so like, okay, well, we're going to start you off, and then you come up with your idea, the ideation phase, then you start, then you come back into class. Okay, this is going right, this is going wrong. What are the logistics of that?
Okay, so these 10 days of class are 10 days back to back. And what it entails is our speakers are now coming in, and it's going to be a lot of information they're going to cram into 10 days. It's going to accelerate their minds. And what's going to happen is, at the end of the 10 days, we're going to issue them a project, and they will have all the information they need at the end of the 10 days. And we are going to group them off into groups of 10, and these are going to be their, hopefully, new business partners for a long period of time. And they're now responsible for creating their project and launching it. And the thing is, we are giving them a grant at the end. It's not much. It's a 30,000 TT grant to the winning team. And there are one or two franchises that we are in the talks with to get them to sponsor management franchises for those who would win the competition and provide proper pitches as well.
I like the fact how you're not able to pick him out at this point in time. You're being very cautious, but it makes sense to creep before you walk. But just before we go, give us that contact information. Again, how do people access the information to say, okay, well, this is something that I want to be a part of while they're saving the $5,000 or less together to be a part of this exercise?
Sure. So when you log on to Facebook, you're going on to Christmas the Guild on Facebook, or you can now log on to Facebook and you can look for my page, which is Valmiki Paulidor. All right. And there is a WhatsApp number there. Let me just give that to you. It's 351 7622. All right. So they can now reach out to me. We'd get on to them and we'll help them out as best as we can. We haven't yet started to take in these people yet. And that's happening at the end of August when we're fully launched.
We want to thank you for the work that you're doing, seeing that need and addressing it, because sometimes there are individuals who will say, you know, it would make sense if this was happening, as opposed to saying, okay, well, this needs to happen and we are going to do it. So, Valmiki Paulidor, thank you very much. Christmas the Guild on Facebook, longer name Christmas the Entrepreneurial Guild, for the work that you're doing. And on behalf of the entire TTT News team, this has been In Depth with me, Dike Rostant. Thank you so much for joining us.